one adjustment to today's agenda, which is we will be starting with the supplemental appropriation relates to Medicaid, revenue sharing with the schools presentation first, and then we'll transition into the ERP update. There was a small adjustment, and the time adjustment was not made, but that will be the first presentation of the morning. I would ask for my colleagues that you hold your questions until the conclusion of each presentation, just to be respectful of today's presenters. So we can get started. Good morning, Commissioner Reed. We can get started this morning with the first presentation. Supplemental appropriation relates to Medicaid revenue sharing with the schools. Good morning, Ms. Hill.
Okay, all right, Dr. Hill is going to present the PowerPoint. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep, I'm getting it going right now.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
We sure can.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. All right, good morning, everybody. Dr. Courtney Hill, Executive Director, Point of Contact from the Office of Special Education. And then if my colleagues want to introduce themselves really quickly, go right ahead.
Sylvia Allen, third-party billing manager.
Good morning, DeVal Foster, third-party billing.
Good morning, Mary Ann Cox, Deputy CFO.
All right, so we are here today to discuss the supplemental appropriation of revenue sharing for Medicaid funds. And this is aligned to a few board priorities in particular. So we highlighted priority 3, priority 5, and priority 7, because this is really about making sure that we can do what we can to support our schools with having access to additional funds to align with these priorities. So what this really is all about is we are going to give $2.5 million to schools. Yay! So that is the high-level overview of what we're going to do. So where these funds come from is that they are coming from our third-party billing funds, and the funds are going to go to schools to be used for supplies that support the instruction and support of students with disabilities. And every single school in city schools will be able to receive some funds. The exact amount is going to change depending upon their rates of third-party billing completion. So the more third-party billing completion that they've been doing throughout the year, the more funds that they will be allocated. The specific range of funds is from $2,500 to $30,000. So we have 28 schools who are on board to receive $30,000. We have 49 schools who are on board to receive $20,000. We have 45 schools who are on board to receive $10,000, 26 who will receive $7,000, 8 who will receive $4,000, and 6 who will receive $2,500. So where these funds come from, as I mentioned, is that these are funds that are linked to our Medicaid billing. So basically, it's reimbursement for the services that we provide and the service coordination that we provide to Medicaid eligible children with disabilities. And those services are provided by qualified city school service providers. So the services that are eligible are things like nursing, occupational and physical therapy, psychological and social work services, transportation, speech and language and audiology, and our service coordination and case management. This is just an overview of how the award amounts were determined and allocated. And my colleagues from finance may want to speak a little bit more to this specifically. But basically, we looked at the amount of money that was recovered by each school. And then, so like which services they were billed for and things of that nature. And then we computed their compliance percentage based on what we would have expected a school to report based on their special education population. And then we multiplied that recovery by compliance to get the award amount. And then now we're at the point where we're working on getting approval to actually roll out the funds and get materials for kids. And then just kind of taking a closer look at that process. So basically, the fund award percentages are based on the number of services that we would expect for each school special ed population, and then the number of services received. So if we take the example of a school with 100 students with disabilities, and we say that they're expected to report the following. So they're expected to report one IEP meeting, four quarterly progress reports, 4 report cards, and 1 parental consent document for each student with a disability. So what we're saying is if that occurs for all 100 of those students, then they would be at 100% compliance and they would get $30,000, which is the maximum amount here. So our timeline is, we're here with you today, and then this will also be a board agenda item next week. Once we have board approval, the funds should be released to schools within 5 days, and then school teams should plan to submit requisitions by April 30th. If there is more time that's needed, school teams can apply for an extension of the deadline to submit those requisitions, but they should still be entered as soon as possible. And these funds absolutely cannot be used beyond the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th of 2023. And that is it.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Hill.
You are welcome.
I am going to open the floor to my colleagues. We can get started. Commissioner Coy, do you have any questions?
Always, and just trying to understand and make sure that I'm sort of processing as I'm fairly new, still on the board. I guess in some ways I'm not new, but I'm in terms of the Medicaid billing here. When you've outlined that schools are in 100% compliance is when they get more of the funding. You gave an example of when somebody would get the full 30,000. Could you just give an example of when somebody wouldn't get that full amount and sort of a little bit of the calculation that goes into that?
There are a lot of reasons why this could happen. Probably one of the most common is that all of the school-based service coordinators, those who relate to the parent once a month, are not billable by Medicaid. They don't meet billing qualifications. So that might be one reason. The staff, meaning they're not certified to a specific billing extent, and that would be that's not the school's fault, but that would be a major reason why they would not be able to get the full $30,000. It's mostly staffing. It's mostly staffing at the service coordination level.
Would it be fair to then characterize what is happening here is really a pass-through of the funds that are based off of what is billable to the school where the activity occurred that was billable?
This is actually from June 30th, 2022. So all year long, we provide the schools with reports to show them their progress, to say, okay, this is where you stand, this is where you stand, this is where you stand. And one of the reasons why everybody received something is because it is of no fault of theirs. So everybody got a distribution, whether they were able to support reporting their services or not. And I hope that answers your question, but we wanted to be fair in that everybody got something. Like I said, it's not always the fault of the school at who they choose, and they're not really that much aware of billing regulations, but we do send monthly reports and say, this is where you stand according to service coordination and your compliance billing percent with third-party billing. And that's sent regardless of whether or not they would get an award for that or revenue sharing for that. So we've always provided those reports to them.
No, I appreciate that. And obviously even hospitals have so much staff that are dedicated to purely the question of billing and whatnot. And that's not necessarily what a school is. However, I think this is wonderful to see that these funds are making their way to the schools. In terms of when a school, well, in the billing, is there more funds that are being distributed, right? Is there a percentage that is then centrally managed that is not part of the distribution? So in other words, if the services that they're providing equal, 30,000 is what they are getting if they have all of those things, did the district receive, is it known how much, I guess, more that the district received above and beyond that for those services in the billing? And this is a percentage of?
That's what where the 28 million comes into play. What is not used has to go into a restricted spending category, and that's where this 2.5 million is coming from. I would call it the overflow, but it's not really 1 year. It's successive years of funds that have been recovered but not expensed. They're beyond the budget expectations.
Okay, so let me, and thank you, Chair Richardson, for letting, or Chair Roberts for letting me sort of ask to the point where I understand. So essentially, on a standard basis, the schools have been receiving funds relating to the billing, the medical billing that's possible, and there's a set of funds that were above and beyond what has been distributed previously, and that's why the supplemental, with the restrictions that they have to spend it before the end of the year at this point in time. Am I understanding that?
Okay, no, I did not explain myself correctly. This is something that every school is getting. This particular supplemental revenue sharing is something for every single school. Now, at the special ed administration level, there are other things that the schools get that they may not even know is coming from third-party billing revenue. So there are other things that that the IEP office may benefit from, or that the students are benefiting from, but this is a specific thing that we used to do, that our peers do, PG County and Baltimore County. They specifically send money to every single school, and that's what this particular exercise is attempting to do, is to say, here's your pot, here is your pot, here is your pot. We know that there are things that you need that you're not getting otherwise, or that aren't specific to your school or to your school population. So that is what we're attempting to do here, is to rectify that and say, oh, you've been so supportive, you've been faithful. Here is what we know you need. But there are other things at higher levels that they benefit from, just not at an individual school level like this.
Okay, Sylvia, if I could just
Yes.
clarify.
Yes.
We do an estimate based on the third-party billing revenue that we believe we are likely to achieve for the next fiscal year. And that creates a budgeted amount for the third-party billing grant. The third-party billing grant does support certain functions at the central office level. So they're already getting that money that's already been charged to third-party billing, and the source of the funding for this supplemental is the cumulative amount of those funds, where the revenue exceeded the budget for whatever reason. We had COVID, which rearranged things a little bit. So, but it's just been going on for a number of years, the accumulation of that fund.
I appreciate it. This helps me understand a lot better, and I'm happy to defer to others for questions from.
Well, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Roy.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reed.
Yeah, I guess it's two. Thank you, ladies, very much for your presentation. I guess, can you go to slide, what did I just do? Can you go to slide 6?
Okay, so
Hello?
that's the process one?
Yeah, I guess, thank you, Marianne. I guess two things come to mind. I'm thinking in terms of record keeping and accountability. I guess my first question is, how tough is this to do? And are funds slowed down in terms of distribution because the progress reports and report cards don't meet your standards all the time? One, that's my first question. And my second question is a hypothetical. Bear School, which is, that's probably the 28 million, but Bear School, which is a special needs school, has probably one process, and say a number of school like Samuel Coleridge has another process. So how does how do you decide that Bear School never always gets $30,000 and another school gets, say, 10? Is there
Let
a,
me answer.
yeah, so
Go
how
ahead,
does
I'm
that
sorry.
work out?
It doesn't, we don't look at the by school because Bear is and what we consider one of our all special ed school.
I'm
It's
sorry,
not
who's
based
speaking?
on the school like Bear or 307. That's not how we do it. But to answer your first part, it is not hard to do at all. The providers actually go into our system. Every student has one IEP meeting a year, at least one IEP meeting. That's a given. Then at
Okay.
least 4 quarters, you have to report progress to a parent. And that quarter is always the quarter before the report card actually comes out. And yes, we do. We look at the form that is sent home to the parents because in order to meet qualifications for billing, it must address IEP goals. It must list the parent's name. So we do look at each form that comes in for billing purpose to make sure it does meet MSDE COMAR regulations. For the
Okay.
report card is pulled directly from Maryland Online. So it's going to definitely meet the qualifications because as a teacher, you may not cover every IEP goal, but at least during that quarter, you have touched at least one of the goals. So you have to say making progress or no progress, and you have to write a statement to the parent. Now, for the parent consent, each year we send home a letter at the beginning of the year, letting the parents know this is a requirement by COMAR and by MSDE, by the federal regs. We have to let the parents know who's going to be that child service coordinator. That is sent home every year. Also on the Maryland Online IEP, the last page is a brief summary of the letter that we send home. So when a parent signs the IEP, they're also signing, giving us permission to bill, and those are the requirements that we do. Now, as far we can, for instance, we can look at Douglas. Douglas may have more special ed students than Bear does. So
Right.
Douglas' percentage may be higher than Bear's percentage. So we
Right.
don't look at the number that is a all special ed school. We look at the number of entries that's submitted by a school or by a provider each month.
Okay.
I hope that
Commissioner
helps.
Reed, really quickly, hi, Commissioner Roberts. Who was that just responded to Commissioner Reed for a matter of record?
This is DeVal Foster.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. I just heard a voice. I didn't know who that was.
You're welcome.
So you guys are comfortable with the record keeping and the accountability? There's no glitches
Absolutely.
or slippage?
Let me say this.
Absolutely.
We have been doing this. They have been doing this for 20 years. The schools have. The schools have been doing this for 20 years. They are very, very familiar with the process and what is expected of them. But they've never actually participated in revenue sharing. So what might be a byproduct of this is the fact that there will be more services reported, more revenue coming in because the schools see, oh, I got revenue sharing. Now I'm going to seriously report the services that are being provided by our school. So there is a positive byproduct that may come of this, but the schools are very, very familiar with this. We are very, very comfortable with the process, as is the Maryland Medicaid and MSDE integrated audit team, which visits us once every year. And to tell you how comfortable we are, since 2012, we have recovered $98 million, and we've only had to give back $87,000.
Can you give me those numbers again?
Yes. Okay. 98, and you'll hear them again later on. $98,798. I'm sorry. $98,798,557.43 is what we have recovered from Medicaid since 2012. Since 2012, we have only given back to Maryland Medicaid for findings $87,944.61. That is how comfortable we are with this process.
That's great. And for future purposes, you don't have to give me the big number. Just give me the 98 and 87.
Okay.
But thank you very much. I
Yes,
appreciate
you're very
it.
welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, of course. I think I saw Commissioner Esposito joined on the presentation. Did you have any questions or comments?
Nothing from me right now.
Okay. I just wanted to circle back really quickly, and I think I heard you answer this earlier, but this is just for a matter of record as it relates to the information for our students that receive Medicaid. Are we fully getting that information from families self-reporting that information, or that's a cross-functional effort from a larger body of data?
Not certain I'm understanding your question.
I
The
don't
information
understand
that
your
we're
question.
getting is being entered into the third-party billing system, which collects the data that is reported by the schools. The schools are actually reporting the data into our system. Does that
So
answer
that's
your
my
question?
question. So are
Yeah.
we only getting that information from the schools as opposed to a larger Medicaid entity that has all of the Medicaid information, and we do like a cross-functional effort of,
It's
I mean,
both.
if our kids are a part of it,
Yes, yes.
just so
We
we're
actually
discovering
have
and
to
we're
do,
accounting for all of the students?
yes.
That's the question.
Yes, it is cross-functional. It is cross-functional. And when Maryland Medicaid comes in and they audit us, they choose children that we don't know who they're going to select. And so part of the process is making sure that this is working. And that's why we're very, very comfortable with the process and knowing that it works and that it is fair and that it is following the Medicaid regulations, which are set for Maryland LEAs.
Wonderful. I love to hear that. I love cross-functionality. I love it.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
Oh, of course, of course. Thank you all so much for your presentation and your super comprehensive responses to each of the commissioners' questions this morning. We can prepare for the next presentation,
All
our
right, thank you.
ERP
Thank you.
update. Of course. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Chief Jones, will you be leading this presentation?
I will be starting it off, but as we always like to have the team do the bulk of it.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, team.
Good morning. Good morning. I apologize for the glare off the top of my head, but that comes with age. So I tried to turn the lights down a little bit, but it didn't work too well. So, but this morning we want to give the Operations Committee of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners an update on where we stand on the Administrative Modernization Project. We affectionately call it AMP, AMP people up. But most people know of it as the Enterprise Resource Planning transition. We are going to have a number of our team members report out today, as well as we're going to do a little bit of a review, simply because we know we have a few commissioners. Next slide. As always, we like to highlight the fact that this really is primarily focused on the board strategic priority number 3. That we will have high quality, modernized resources to support our students and educators and administrators. And as always, just as a little review, the project's goal is to replace the current in-house finance and human capital system with a much more modern, sustainable one that we're moving to the cloud, which actually helps us reduce some of our operating costs, along with give us more feature and functionality. It is scalable, much more so than the current one is, and we are looking to provide much better data analytics and real-time access. We're also looking to make sure that we have a chance to improve and modernize some of our business processes by looking at things cross-functionally. And then finally, this is a big step forward for us towards providing a single source of the truth. That's not the single source, but it will integrate many, many little small systems that contain financial data and human capital data into one. So it's a huge step forward. Next slide.
All right, good morning, everyone. We know that there are some folks that are new to our AMP project. And so for those folks, we wanted to have a few quick slides to just bring you up to date. So we'll go through those. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. So to get started, what is ERP? ERP actually stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. It is an application, and as we use it here at City Schools, it's not just one application, but it's a group of applications that we use to help us collect and manage data from finance, human capital, and other areas. Next slide. So just to give you a brief scope of what ERP covers, you can see that there's all of these different areas in finance, including our budget and fixed assets, general ledger, and in our human capital, position management, leaves, talent acquisition, and all of those, and understand that those are also third-party applications that are integrated into our system. And then also there is the reporting and integration of data that we currently do for the district. Next slide. So that I wanted to give you a lay of the land as far as where we are now. So what have we been doing in AMP that makes us excited about the future? One of the things that we've done is we've had decision accelerators, and these are sessions where we didn't just rely on our SMEs and those folks inside the office, the back office that makes everything work. We went out and we talked to our school staff, the folks that are actually using the applications, and we had a series of sessions to get information from them to help shape what our new system will look like. Over the course of multiple sessions, we've had like 2 or 3 day sessions, about 40 to 60 people. So we've spent a lot of time and asked a lot of people that are users of the system, not just those of us that maintain the system, what we should be doing to bring that, to make ERP new. And that's where we get to our AMP project, which my other colleagues will discuss more. Next slide. And so we did want to talk about the single source of truth. So just throughout all of the sessions that we had, this point came forward very clearly from our users and our subject matter experts, those back office staff. We want to get to a single source of truth so that finance and human capital and everyone has confidence in the data that we're gathering. And so that is our driving force for our AMP project going forward. We are heading in that direction. As Chief said, it won't just be all in one application, but we are now actively thinking about when we add other applications into this mix that we need to feed the data and be able to make sure that at the end of the day, we have a single source of truth. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. Courtney Desabay here from Finance. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the project timeline. So the project spans from October 2021 through April 24. So you see our 3 phases here of the project. In blue, we have the financials, which is supposed to go live July 2024. It's actually going to be right after we come back from the 4th of July weekend. So we'll have a go live launch on the 5th and 6th. Right now, we're in the middle of UAT, or the start of UAT testing, user acceptance training testing. So we're testing the ERP in its most functional state. So with everything built in as it's going to look, and then we're going to go into the phase where we start to transition a lot of our data into the new system. So it's a very critical point for us right now in terms of testing and transitioning and making sure everything works. All the data and back and forth that we've had over the last, 2 years almost is really manifesting in what we're seeing right now in this version of testing. Phase 2, the budget module in green, actually a little bit on hiatus right now because a lot of the folks involved in that phase are either involved in phase one or also the budget process, which we're right in the thick of right now as well. So, you know, it was unreasonable to kind of still have them involved in some of the activities for phase two. So we've kind of pushed that back, knowing that we're still using the current budget tool for this budget cycle. And we wanted to have phase two ready for the fall so we can start our FY25 budget cycle with the new budgeting module. So phase three, which kicked off in December or November, we're down red at the bottom. So it's scheduled to go live April 2024. Next slide talks a little bit more about some of what's included in phase one, the financials. So the sessions or the sections of the financial systems that are being touched are the general ledger, which is what, you know, everything is tied to. All our financial information, chart of accounts is all tied to the general ledger. Our accounts payable, our ability to pay our vendors and invoices, accounts receivable, you know, the money that we get in and billing, cash management, fixed assets, so monitoring our assets, our expenses and reimbursements, projects and grants, purchasing, you know, procurement, and our supplier portal contracts. So all of that is part of the phase one financial system that's going live in July this year.
As you can imagine, considering the time frame, how long this has taken, just one of the slides earlier talked about the fact that we have invested well over 4,000. At this point, I'm sure it's closer to 6,000 hours of people who are not technically part of the team. If I were to give you the number of hours on the team, we were tracking those. I'm sure it is now in the tens, probably closer to 20,000 hours that we put in it. And to do that, organizational change management is crucial. Most time when you talk about technical project implementations, people don't talk about the human side of these things. We did a presentation to the cabinet about a month and a half ago, I think it was. Time flies when you're having fun, so I'm not 100% sure. But we showed them that there was going to be over 800 of their staff who had to be involved in the user acceptance testing phase alone. So in order to do this, organizational change management becomes crucial. And we have baked that into every step of this project. You see over the side on the left there, we talk about a human-centered approach, changes mindsets, help us change processes and procedures. We know that adoption requires at least 4 of 6 behavioral changes that people have to make. We like for them to make all 6, but you rarely hit all 6, but we have to get 4. For example, you have to make the undesirable desirable. That's one of my favorite ones, because I will tell you, no one, absolutely no one, including the project team, wants to actually make this change, but we know the change is valuable to the school system. So I won't read all the things to the right here. You can see the rewards, the strategy, all of those types of things. But the 3 biggest things that we focus on, probably above all else, is communication about what's happening. We're doing that now with the Board of Commissioners. The culture change, making sure that people understand it is crucial that we change the way we think about the business and accepting change as a routine thing. That is not as easy as it sounds and all the popular songs make it sound. And then embrace the resistance. I crack up on this because I always talk about the fact that technology people bring change to everybody. And I think we are the worst people when it comes to accepting change. I know personally, if Microsoft Office changes the ribbon bar, I am mad as fire, ready to call them up and ask them, did they lose their mind? We know that's going to happen here. People are going to say, yes, I hated that old system, but why are you putting this new system in here? So we know that's going to happen, and we're leaning into it, trying to make sure that we get people to embrace that resistance and deal with that resistance. Next slide.
So as Chief Tommy said, embracing the resistance is important, and a major part of that is training. So in terms of phase one and where we are and where we're going to be, once we finish the user acceptance testing, we get into starting to train our trainers and then training our users. And just as with, our current system, training is an ongoing process. We do trainings every year for staff and users in K-12 buy and P-STARS and budget amendments. So training in the new system is also going to be an ongoing thing. We're also going to be setting up a central academy for training materials. And it's not as straightforward as, here's a new system, we open up the manual and everyone read the manual, go to page 10 and figure out how it works. It's a very customized system. It's tailored to our processes, it's tailored to the way that we do business. So every one that installs Oracle Cloud is not going to have the same training or same methodology. So we have to design our training, tweak it for city schools, understand our audience, understand the delivery, who needs to be reached, how they're contacted. So it's a lot of work and effort into building that up and making sure that we're executing on that, and then also building up long-term, long-standing procedures, standard operating procedures, understanding how we do business. Some of this will change over time, especially as we get to learn what the system can and can't do. As Chief Tommy mentioned, there is going to be a rough introduction at first. It's not going to be what folks are used to. But over time, we'll be tweaking our processes, getting a better understanding of how to maximize the system, which is something we really want to make sure we do this go around, as opposed to maybe not fully maximizing the old system that we had while we had it. So we're building all of that in up front, but we're going to learn as we go, make adjustments, and kind of build on it as we continue to go for the other phases as well. All right, any questions?
Thank you so much, Courtney, for the presentation. I'll open the floor for questions. Commissioner Esposito, do you have any remarks?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it going to manage the PQS process for new vendors? Let me remember. Let me look up what PQS stands for. I forget what that.
What did someone ask that question, Commissioner?
No, I just want to say what it is. Just the pre-qualification selection process for vendors.
Yeah, that's correct. So our procurement system, this is going to be replacing our current procurement system of K-12 buy. So it's the actual tool that we use for some of our procurement. Some of our processes exist outside of the actual system, like the PQS. So it's more of a methodology of how we evaluate and keep vendors on hand. So that isn't necessarily going to change as much as how we go through the process of creating a requisition and so forth. Some of what might be touched on that might relate to vendors is a little bit of the portals that we're going to be setting up, and how vendors are sort of entered automatically. But actually, from the vendor side of things, they're not going to see a lot of changes from this system. It'll more be our end users who are actually going in and creating the requisitions.
Thank you. Yeah, and is there sorry, one more question. So some of the processes that exist for for example, the infants and toddlers, those things aren't necessarily this is more of a financial okay. Is there any plans in the future to create a modernization for things that interface with the community, because it would be great to when submitting a referral to the infants and toddlers program, being able to schedule your appointments and, coordinate in that way with the staff. So I'm wondering if there's any plans for something like that.
Yeah, that's not part of this current project, but we're always evaluating our systems. I'm sorry, I'll let Chief Tommy answer as the IT expert, but we're always looking at our systems and evaluating them and looking at the lifespan of our systems, kind of on a rotating basis, our SIS and other systems as well. So I fully expect that that's something that we'd be looking at over time.
Yeah, and just to add a little more to that, as Courtney said, and others have said, this is the core financial, core human capital system. There are little periphery systems that connect to these systems that are not being replaced. This project by itself is already massive, so there's a certain amount, only so much we can take on at one time. But other systems are always being evaluated. Like, for example, I don't know if this is will fit perfectly, but right now we're looking at a new enrollment choice and transfer, which talks about getting information in on kids. We are looking, a couple of those escaping my mind, but that exactly like Courtney said, we are constantly looking at what we can take on and what should be replaced. I think there's probably every system has people who want it replaced. We just can't take on but so much. Even ESSER, which has been a godsend to us, has created issues of so many systems at once. So I don't know this system specifically. I apologize for that. But maybe we could offline if there's more I can provide. But yeah, we are constantly looking at the systems, and they're constantly going through evolution, constantly.
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to give y'all kudos too for how much input you had from the end users. I saw how many hours were actually like that. I think that's a flaw of what, like, I love modernization projects like that the state's done where they have like let the end users like lead the way that it should actually like function. So I just want to give y'all props for that.
Thank you very much. And that is one of the things why we started from day one, and Commissioner Coy can speak to it since he participated with us. But it was crucial to us to get input from all of the users. We know we're not going to satisfy everything that everyone raised, but we wanted to make sure we are getting their perspective on what affects them, and what are the biggest issues, and what little side systems do they have to keep track of, that way we can roll them into it. We did not do a perfect job. We are absolutely not going to satisfy every single problem that people did. But there was a statement made during one of the design accelerators that, quite frankly, I wish you'd have been there, Commissioner Esposito, because if this is of concern to you, you would have loved this statement. The gentleman that we had we actually had someone who was doing on their off time, was doing music mixing for us. And he was listening as we were talking, and he literally stepped out and said, in 32 years of being at the district, he has never had people ask him and others for this much input. We had payroll clerks saying the same thing. They have never had this much input into something. And I just reminded them, I appreciate it so much they've given us input, and don't hold me accountable for all 35 of the things they said. I'll try to get the 4, but yeah, we tried really hard to make sure this was getting the input from the actual users and beneficiaries of the system.
Thank you so much, Chief Jones. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Courtney, this is probably in your wheelhouse. Can somebody from your shop, I don't want to spend time on it, but can somebody from your shop send me what you guys propose to do in terms of data analytics, in terms of reporting, just so I can get my arms around? Because you talked about cross-functionality. Maybe there's some way that the board executive office can be engaged in this whole cross-functional thing in terms of data analytics. Hopefully it is, and I guess the other thing is, it took me forever to figure out why they call you Chief Tommy. Duh. I finally figured it out. Okay, but and he said, we are the worst people to accept change. Then I looked at slide 9. Slide 9 basically has the thing with you got the thing with the embrace resist culture.
Yes.
Can you guys promise us that you can do that in terms of leaning in and saying, we don't want to be held hostage and we were willing to say no? Because I seldom see that from you guys. Tend to circle the wagons and basically try not to be outside the box. I mean, offline, some of you guys do, but by and large, when we get together as a group, you guys tend to walk the same walk, talk the same talk, instead, even though you know.
So are you talking about the IT people specifically, or the whole organization?
I'm talking the whole organization.
So I will tell you, and this is one man's opinion, but I will tell you, going through this process and having done this several times, that is the worst of the worst right here. Because I've told the team, for example, I said, we are doing all of this training to prepare people. It will not be enough. I don't care how much we do. On day one, in fact, for the first 6 months, we will hear a nonstop stream of complaints that this takes me longer, this is worse than what it was. In fact, I just had last week 2 people, a technical person and a functional person, make a complaint about it's going to be. It is going to happen. It is impossible to avoid. So the team is braced for that. And we're ready. We're like, for example, let's talk about training for a second. We're going to do training before we launch, but we're going to do a continuous stream of training after we launch. We're going to put the training in academies so that people can use it. But nobody likes change. I don't care what people tell you, they don't like change. Maybe they like changing from this house to the next house, but as soon as they get in that house, they start complaining about the thermostat's not in the right place. It is just the reality of humans. So we've been trying very hard to prep our own team that, look, people will complain. We're going to complain. I had one of my staff complain about a decision to interface to insurance carriers. So yes, I can promise you that we are aware of it and that we're leaning into it and we're fighting the urge people have to say, I have to do it this way because I did it that way for the last 20 years. And just to be honest about it, we've not won 100% of those fights, but I think we've won 90% of those fights. So
Okay.
when you hear the staff complaining, just say, well, Chief Tommy said they were going to complain.
I saw Chris sneak in here. I guess, lastly, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I'm taking up so much time, but lastly, I'm not, I don't understand. But lastly, the box at the lower left where you have motivation, ability, going down the structure where you have 5 and 6.
Yeah.
What does that mean to me as a commissioner?
So one of the things you do, you're gonna laugh at this, but we try to reward the people who get in front and actually lead the process change. So let's just say, I'll speak on my team. The IT staff that sit there and say, oh yeah, I understand. I got to learn this. I need to figure out how to configure this. I need to learn how to do data analytics instead of just writing reports. Those are the people, quite frankly, I try to give the best positions on the project to, because you're leaning in, helping me move the project forward. If you're going to sit in the background and just complain about something, then I'm not too worried about giving you that. Sometimes rewards are just small things. It's like it's a better review on your performance review because you led the crowd. You were the one who stepped up in front and said, I'm going to learn this so that I can be a champion for this after we go live. Even though there's pain, I'm going to be the one who do that. Some rewards are just little silly things like a t-shirt, or a coffee mug. But we try to figure out and how do we hit people where they live at in terms of what they want. And sometimes small things are very much that way. Now, same thing about accountability. You cannot let someone who's going around complaining and denigrating the new changes and constantly saying, this is wrong, this is a bad way to do it, and not making any effort to learn the right way. I'm dealing with some of those folks on my side. I know Chief Doherty's dealing with it, Chief Nelson is dealing with it. It's about figuring out what that balance is. I'm not trying to penalize people, but I'm trying to get them on board. You talked about analytics, and I apologize for the long statement, but you probably picked the 2 things on this whole presentation that raises my blood pressure and makes me talk a lot about it. But you talked about accountability. I've told my team, we have to move this old data to a data warehouse. And each and every one of them will learn how to pull out and marry the old data with the new data so that we get the right answer. Not just Pi, not just PK. Each and every one of them have to accept that responsibility. And then changing the environment sometimes is just a matter of when the chiefs speak up and say, not acceptable, I'm not tolerating your belly aching, this is where we're going because this is for the greater good. And yes, person A, your job is actually harder. That is absolutely the truth. But person B, C, and D, their job is easier. So we're going to manage some of those resources to help you with the harder job. So it's a balancing act, and it's hard.
Thank you.
So too long a winded answer, but I hope it at least gave you sort of sense of the approach and how we're taking steps to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you for that response. Commissioner Cordy, you have one question before we wrap this presentation?
I have a request and a question. My request is, and Chief Tommy, you referenced the Decision Accelerator PDC, which I loved. You know, that was wonderful. I would, and Courtney, you sort of talked about the user acceptance experience. As commissioners, obviously, we are receiving some of the different reports and information from this. I would love to engage directly in some of that user experience, user acceptance experience. So would love an opportunity to do so. We can follow up separately. My question, that was my request. My question is on the revenue side. We often talk and think a lot about revenues on a per pupil basis. On the expense side, however, I've not seen the same reference or the same focus on per pupil expenses or per pupil basis for expenses. How are you all thinking about that currently, and what is contemplated in this new ERP system related broadly to representing items in a per pupil expenditure?
That's an interesting question. So you are right. Historically, we have generally spoken a lot in terms of our revenue on a per pupil basis, but we always delivered funding to schools differently from how it was received. Kerwin is sort of changing that dynamic a lot, and a lot of the reporting that we're going to be doing going forward on Kerwin is very much like per pupil based. So that change is sort of forced upon us with Kerwin. In terms of the ERP system, where the only module that you may really see that sort of integrated is maybe the budget module, but we actually have some other apps and developers that we've been working with independent of this to help us sort of formulate or articulate what funding looks like at an individual school for per pupil level. So that's still in the very early phases. We had started actually building it with the old system, and then we kind of put it on pause until we have this new system in place, and then we can kind of integrate them together. But it's not something you would see directly represented in this AMP project or the software from Oracle necessarily, but definitely something for a continuous conversation. We've been thinking about that specifically in finance in terms of the reporting that we're going to have to be doing for AIB and some of the structural changes that may be involved in that long term. We're going to have to reconsider some of our chart of accounts, for example, to make sure we're reporting accurately. So it is something that's ongoing.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and thank you all so much for the presentation. From the board office, do we have Tanisha Moore with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Tanisha, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Oh, no, no one signed up today.
Okay, so we can transition to procurement and we can have an abbreviated meeting today. Who will be bringing forth procurement today?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia Pickett, Senior Buyer and Accounting Manager for the Procurement Office. I'm subbing in for Shapre today. She is out. Members of the Operation Committee, we have 8 items on the procurement agenda for consideration today. The first item is Relay Hub LLC, item 13.01. The Chief Financial Officer requests the board's approval to piggyback Howard County's public schools contract with Relay Hub LLC to provide a web-based Medicaid billing and service portal. The total estimated amount of the contract is $515,615 even. The contract term is March 29th, 2023 through June 30th, 2026.
My colleagues, by show of hands, are there any questions?
If I can just make one little statement, this is the department that bills Medicaid so that the revenue sharing could happen. That was the first presentation that you had today from Dr. Hill. What we are doing is we are replacing the software that we currently use to incorporate billing and claims processing with the expectation that we will increase revenue. We will increase our current rate of revenue. So I just wanted you to know those things tie together. You've kind of already heard some of these numbers, and I just wanted to make that little statement. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
Thank you. We can
Awesome.
move forward.
Thank you, Sylvia. Item 2, section 15.01 is Autumn Contracting, Inc. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Autumn Contracting, Inc. in the total amount of $3,459 and $459,500. The contract provides roof replacement services at Glenmount Pre-K School, number 235. The price includes the 3 schools: Glenmount Pre-K School, number 235, base bid item number 1 in the amount of $2,995,000. Second school is Glenmount Pre-K 8 School, number 235, alternate number 1, item number 2 in the amount of $50,000. And Glenmount Pre-K 8 School, number 235, alternate number 2, item and number 3 in the amount of $100,000. And Glenmount Pre-K 8 School, number 235, contingency in the amount of $314,500.
By show of hands, are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any hands. We can move forward to the next item.
Item 15.02, JF Fisher, Inc. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with JF Fisher, Inc. in the total amount of $5,580,300. The contract provides unit ventilator and pipe insulation replacement services at Callaway Elementary School, number 251. This price includes 1, Callaway Elementary School, number 251, base bid item number 1 for the unit ventilator replacement in the amount of $2,145,000. And number 2 for Callaway Elementary School, number 251, base bid item number 2 for the pipe insulation replacement in the amount of $2,382,000. 3, Callaway Elementary School, number 251, alternate number 1, item number 3 for the pipe insulation replacement in the amount of $482,000. 4, Callaway Elementary School, number 251, alternate number 2, item number 4 for the pipe insulation replacement in the amount of $64,000. Callaway Elementary School, number 251, contingency in the amount of $507,300.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Reed. I see your hand.
Yeah, it's basically they're ancillary questions. I'm okay with the procurement, but I guess my question is, when we come up with the contingency of 9.09%, is that standard across the board? And how do we come up with that number? I guess 2, with JF Fisher, that $5 million is like 10% of the expected procurement for, I guess, the period based on another page we saw. My question is, how are we doing, hey Cindy, how are we doing in terms of the WMBE process with companies like JF Fisher? So there's two-part questions.
Okay,
Let's
with
see if
regards
my
to
director. Yeah, so we have 2 of us on here. We have me, Cindy Smith, Executive Director, Planning, Design, and Construction, and Maurice Gaskins, who is the Director of Construction for Facilities. I do want to hit on the first one though first, which was contingency. So several years ago, we worked with procurement to actually set a specific percentage for contingency based on the certain kinds of projects, based on the types of change orders we see for each kind of project, the unforeseen conditions, abatement, asbestos that you don't find until after you start construction, things that you can find up and above the ceilings for HVAC. So for example, HVAC projects, then we run a consistent 10% contingency. The contingency funds, though, I think that the biggest thing is that each change order has to come to us for approval. So every time we get a change order, right, it comes to us for approval. We make sure that the scope is correct, the cost is correct for the change order, and then it goes down against that contingency. If there's money left in the contingency when the project's done, that goes back in our pot of money to just use for the next project. It's really there just to make the ability to do those changes that we need to do in the field that much faster, because otherwise we'd have to come back to you guys for approval every time we needed to add $5,000 to, do some ceiling tile work or something like that.
Yeah, Cindy, I know why you do it, but how do you come up with 9.09% every time?
So it's 10%, it should be 10%. So it should
Okay.
be 10% of the total. So HVAC, for example, we say is 10%.
Okay, well, I'm good.
Fire alarms is 8%, roofing is 8%. So we just have a set based on what we've seen of past change orders,
Okay,
an overall percentage.
thank you.
Maurice, did you want to add?
You want to handle the
Sure,
MBE,
yes.
WBE side?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, ED Smith. Again, my name is Maurice Gaskins. I am the Director of Construction for Facilities. So, Commissioner Rhea, as it pertains to MBE participation for JF Fisher, historically, they have performed at or above the percentages that were provided in the solicitation on this on multiple projects. So, which leads us to believe that they will be able to successfully meet I think this one has 20% with some sub goals.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course, Maurice, I think your cat was disinterested in what we were discussing in the last item. We can move forward, Patricia.
All right, thank you. Next item is 15.03, door and frame repair and installation. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Tito Contractors, Inc., Colossal Contractors, Inc., and Janus Contractors, Inc. to provide door and frame repair maintenance and replacement services to Baltimore City Public Schools on an as-needed basis. The estimated annual contract amount is $400,000. The contract term is April 26th, 2023 through April 27th, 2026, with 1 2-year renewal option.
By show of hands, are there any questions? I do not see any. We may move
All right.
forward.
Next item is item 15.04, Office Depot, Inc. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to increase the estimated annual contract amount with Office Depot, Inc. From $6,900,000 to $7,900,000 annually, an increase of $1 million annually to continue providing office supplies to all city schools locations on an as-needed basis. The contract term is July 1, 2013 through May 31st, 2016, with ongoing 1-year renewals.
Are there any questions? By show of hands, Commissioner Coy?
So I recall seeing some of these or a related item to this in the fall. Is this additional $1 million anticipated for this school year, or is it forward facing for this school year and into next school year for supplies that are needed?
Mr. Levy, are you available?
Yeah, sorry, I gotta just change the computer. Hold on. It's for the anticipated. It's what's coming up. Hope that answers your question.
Commissioner Coy?
On mute.
You're muted.
Hashtag 2020 on mute. So what I'm understanding is it's for next school year is what you're saying, anticipated upcoming school year?
Correct.
And is that I guess that's the total amount is 7.9 million we're anticipating for next school year. Is that am I just understanding that correctly, what you're saying?
I think, isn't this a 3-year?
It's not very clear from language here, and I know when it gets to the full board, it will have sort of more paperwork, but trying to understand the scope of what is being requested, especially because the contract dates are for a previous sort of period. It's on the renewal cycle. So
let me read the specifics and I'll get back to you.
Okay, and if it goes in front of the full board with those specifics, then I'm good for that.
Okay.
But the language here didn't. I wasn't understanding what time frame or amounts. So
No problem.
Actually, and also for a matter of record, I just want to add for the agenda today, we have July 1st, 2013 through May 31st, 2016. So that should be adjusted appropriately as well.
yeah, that was a little bit throwing me for the loop. So I didn't know if we're just in the renewal cycles from our original contract or, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Dick, was that noted for the record? Yes, no, maybe so.
Well,
Someone?
if the inquiry
Yeah, I
about
made note of it.
Right, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
the contract was 600 was initially board approved for 600,000 annually. An increase of 400,000 annually to that contract was, is being requested. So, yep. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the incorrect board letter. My apologies. Disregard.
That's okay. Perfect.
Okay. Moving on to item, let's see, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, 15.05. Do I have that? Oh, I think I'm messing myself up. Yeah, August, yeah. Yep. Quadrant Inc. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to piggyback a competitively bid State of Maryland contract with Quadrant Inc. to provide postage for city schools, as well as the lease of postage meters that comply with U.S. postal regulations requiring two-dimensional encrypted barcodes for all mail. The estimated annual contract amount is $600,000. The contract term is March 29th, 2023 through May 14th, 2024, with 3 one-year renewal options.
Flash your hands. Are there any questions? I do not see any. We can move forward.
Next item is item 16.01. Towson University, the Chief Human Capital Officer requests the board's approval for tuition reimbursement for the Towson University's Master's Degree Transformation Leadership for Excellence and Equity Program attended by city schools employees. The total contract amount is $270,000. The contract term is March 29th, 2023 through December 31st, 2026.
Commissioner Coyle, your hand.
Question for you just on understanding the scale of the opportunity for employees in terms of the number of employees that this is contemplated for. Obviously, it's that number will vary depending on all sorts of factors, but trying to get a sense for how many city schools employees is supported through this.
This particular pathway to administration is budgeted for up to 25 employees, typically teachers per year. We've already had 3 cohorts of the program. This is to cover cohort 4 and on. And we're also looking at other pathways to administration programs with other partner institutes of higher education. So this is just the one through Towson.
So it's approximately 10,000 maybe and some change per individual that is participating in it is about what the cost of the program is?
Yes, over it's like a 2.5 year to 3 year program.
Great. That's really helpful, and I appreciate that insight.
So much. We can move forward with the last procurement item.
Yeah, last item is item 20.01, Apogee Inc. The Chief Communication Engagement and Enrollment Officers requests the board's approval to piggyback Pennsylvania Educational Purchasing Program for microcomputers, PEPPM's contract with Apogee Inc. to provide school marketing and communication software and mobile apps. The estimated total contract amount is $652,052.50. The contract term is from March 29th, 2023 through December 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Patricia. Commissioner Reed.
I'm being a little granular here. What are we getting in terms of the benefit to the community and the families? What's the bottom line benefits? I see the chief. Hey guys. So what's the net benefit to the community for getting these things? Thank you.
The net benefit, there are several. First, we have a website with increased functionality that allows us to share more different forms of content that we're not easily able to share today. Things like PDFs, files, things that fall off of our website that we can't reestablish links to. It allows us to better manage our content. Number 2, we reestablish our mobile app. We have our current mobile app through our current automated messaging vendor, but it does not work very well. And consequently, many families and many staff members don't use it. We now have we will have a fully functioning app. We will also be able to provide dedicated branded school websites for each of our campuses. Right now, our schools individually, they'll either procure a website or they just simply won't have one. So there's a big equity issue in that. those are the principal benefits.
I would just add, it also replaces our current parent link and provides a stronger way to do our robocalls and our outreach to families through text messaging and our calling systems as well. And then last, just one small additional note is that our mobile app, we actually also hope to get better connection with our students, because we speak directly to families and the community and partners. And the app, if our students are downloading the app, they will have the ability to then communicate and engage with us through the app as well.
So both of you, I feel better asking this question now than I did at the beginning. One, because it raises another question. How can we communicate to the greater community about the benefits they'll accrue through this app and its mobile device? Because it's like your office is communication engagement. But as long as we continue to engage, elevate the level of communication, we'll also elevate the level of engagement. So how do we communicate this to the public that this is some new thing coming down the pike and we're going to be better and help you more going down the road? How do we do that?
I mean, if you'd like us to do a small presentation attached to the procurement item, we can certainly do that. That just gives the bits and pieces, but understand this is a progression, right? We're buying this, but
Okay.
It means over time, we'll have the pieces there. So we're going to be promoting the different pieces as they come available, right? So like the mobile app, and I don't have the timeline in front of me, but we will be able to promote them as they come online.
Okay, it's above my pay grade. You can, I guess, Madam Chair could tell you about that. I don't know, but thank you for educating me, though. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your question, Commissioner Freed. Commissioner Esposito, I saw you raise your hand.
Yes, I was happy to hear this because we've been trying to work through the robocall and links issues in the past. And so like I do think like the app and having like the websites and stuff will be really helpful because like as a parent like of a kid not in the schools yet, I went through and just like got some of the signed up the way that a parent would like subscribe to the robocalls or like newsletters and things. And so having that process like more streamlined and an app I think would be really cool. And then even at events, as far as like getting buy-in from the community, maybe there could be like a standardized like things like QR codes that are always at school events, like at individual schools, so that it's always like out there that it's available. Because I know our school, my neighborhood school, like they created their own app, but it's been hard for them to like promote it themselves with everything else that they're managing. So this is really good.
Thank you. We're excited about it.
Commissioner Coy.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank Commissioner Reed for asking the question and saying you all really buried the lead on this one. For like, oh, we want to buy stuff and is not doing the weeds to sort of have this conversation. I think it's really wonderful to hear what you all are thinking about for a new sort of web environment and what that looks like. And certainly, knowing the degree, that Commissioner Esposito is talking about, the degree to which communities are relying on this communication and whatnot, and frankly the role that the board does have interfacing with the broader community. I think this is something that's going to be of interest and want to engage with from the board perspective. So as this comes up to the full board, we just encourage leading with the sort of vision of what this is going to enable and do, and not bury the lead on it.
And just a clarification, thank you, Commissioner Coy. Would you like us to have a slide or two on what we get out of this that we shared during the board meeting? Because normally this would go through consent, but when you say educate the whole board, we've already submitted the board letter. So just curious what you'd like that to look like for follow-up.
Yeah, no, I do think that there would be, interest from the board. So having something prepared is a great way to front and center that, and maybe some of the things that would help for board, as I think about what board commissioners might be asking, or what I might be interested is understanding some of the timeline to say, we want to engage with them now. This is when we anticipate having, these are the phases of the project. This is obviously not nearly as involved as the ERP and all of those types of things, but just sort of saying, here's the 3 phases of this process, and here's how, we are going to do these, and this is the way to engage as board commissioners, given the unique role that we play in interfacing with the broader community. Obviously, not wanting to be in the weeds and managing, governing, not managing, and this is one of those areas that does feel more particularly relevant for board commissioners and insights that I think we'd love to be a partner more directly.
Are you
Thank
speaking
you.
for Commissioner Coy or the full board, Commissioner Coy? Because I'm thinking a completely different perspective here, but I'll let Commissioner Esposito ask her question as well.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask if there's gonna be like in like I know y'all are at like beginning stages, but for the app and the website, like are there any talks about like accessibility features? Like, because I'm somebody that uses accessibility software, like being able to like make adjustments with like the font size or language, and like is there gonna be like intentional like design so that people can like almost like choose their own experience based on like their needs, like parents with disabilities?
We'll be able to develop some of those tools. However, through federal government requirements and things with the state, there are some mandatory requirements that we have to have for accessibility. And quite frankly, up until recently, our current website had not been meeting those. We had to work with the Office of Civil Rights to get into a place where we're finally meeting those standards. So looking forward, we're building requirements into the contract that require us. And then as we design it, we can make it, we want to make those
Adjustments later.
functions, more available so they're not hard to get to. So like you said, you can increase the size of a font. You can pick your language. You can do things that will make the website an effective tool for anybody who needs it.
Yeah, and alt text is one, like, because I'm a software developer, and sometimes like software developers like building in the accessibility into the actual like product. Sometimes you can find vendors that are more forward thinking about that. So that's another, I can explain that like more like offline, but yeah, there are efforts to go further than what because the current standards are a little bit behind too for what people's needs are.
Thank you.
So Chief Ag Hubbard, speaking as for Commissioner Roberts here, I'd be interested to in your thought partnership around when you could meaningfully kind of provide some foresight on what the runway looks like for the launch of this project. I do think, to Commissioner Coy's point, kind of coloring that in as it relates to the item coming to the board at our next meeting would be helpful as it relates to just kind of giving it some breadth and depth. But as it relates to, providing that larger context of how this will be embedded into the operations of the system and its intended stakeholder goals, I think I don't know that your team is prepared to do that just yet. Am I hearing that correctly?
We can't do it right this minute, but if you want us to prepare that for the board meeting, we could actually give a runway. It wouldn't be like on January 23rd, right? But it would give you sort of phases and the approximate timeline. I mean, I want to be real honest with folks. Like, we are putting some money towards this now in our current budget, but I had to get this approved through our internal even budgeting process because this is 3 years down the road. This is not just right now. So we are literally at the stage of we've dated the vendor and now we're ready to get married to the vendor and now we got to put our life plan together. It's kind of where we are. But we can certainly share that at the board meeting if you'd like us to, or as pre-reading if you'd rather have that as a different way to do it. But I heard Commissioner Coy talk about the public or Commissioner Reed about the public knowing what we're doing. So I'm happy to do it both or either ways.
I'm just interested in where it could be most meaningful because sometimes when we have our kind of silo presentations, the connections aren't made, for lack of better words, of how that's supporting different structures. And so I'm more interested in seeing the larger picture being told of support for stakeholders versus the one-off of this is what we're doing and it doesn't connect to, the end game plans that are in place. And so, not that a decision has to be made here. I do think, one, it's worthy to color in a bit more about the procurement item because it doesn't currently read this phenomenal resource that's coming down the pipeline. So if that could be offered at the next board meeting, that would be phenomenal. But queuing up for a future presentation of some sort, what that and what the new implementation of this resource will be for stakeholder groups as the rollout, as the building and as the rollout is forthcoming.
Right, we can definitely provide that. We've got some background materials already, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad you're excited for the tool as well. It's the next step in our evolution to finally engage with our families and give them the content they need.
Absolutely. And I think even in kind of that rollout, if there has not been consideration for it, to Commissioner Esposito's point, if there is some type of portal for, I guess, community feedback or stakeholder feedback for implementation of the resource, or considerations for the resource, that would be meaningful.
We got it. Been taking notes. We'll have that for you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed, you wanted to round this out?
Yeah, I just want to make a little commentary. It's like the reason we ask these questions, sometimes tough questions at the operations committee, is not to be a gotcha. We want to learn, and we learned a lot with the discourse we had today. That's all I'm saying. It's like I just appreciate you guys just opening up and educating us because the more we learn, the more we can help the other committees in the board. And it's not a gotcha. It's like please help me. That's what more is. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we don't take it that way.
No, not at all.
We're very excited about this and have wanted it for a long time. We've been shouting it around city schools for quite a minute. So we're now happy that the board will be informed about it as well. And then eventually our public will be as well as we go forward with the procurement.
Yep. And Commissioner Reed, look at it this way. We're the folks who answer the tough questions for media folks. So if you're going to ask anybody a tough question.
It should be.
Yeah, you get the shrapnel wounds I should get sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So two things before we conclude today's meeting. I wanted to highlight, because I did not do this at the start of during an earlier presentation, but the ledger that was submitted by staff for the procurement, the supplemental information, I wanted to highlight that because Commissioner Reed, you asked for that, and I didn't know how much I needed that until we had it from staff. And so thank you so much for that request, and thank you so much to the staff that pulled that together. And then I wanted to highlight, for a matter of record, that there were no compliance reports submitted for today's meeting. And then I just want to round us out and announce the next meeting, which will be April 18th, 2023 at 10:30 a.m. And that will also be a virtual meeting. Commissioner Reed, I see your hand.
Oh, well, I was just saying, you can just pay me and staff back with lunch. We'll take it.
Easy button. Easy button.
All right.
Okay, that is the conclusion of today's operations meeting. Thank you all for being in attendance. This is end of call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Take care.